Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's virtual plant clinic. My name is Bill Lester. I'm with University of Florida IFAS Extension Service here in beautiful Hernando County. And joining me today is one of our Master Gardener volunteers, Bernie. Good morning, Bernie. How are you?
Good morning, Bill. I'm doing well, thank you.
And we are in the same building, just different rooms. And coming to you through the wonders of technology here, where you can ask us whatever kind of lawn and garden questions you have. If you'd like to email pictures, I can take that picture and share it on the screen and show it to everybody, and then we can figure out, hopefully, what's wrong with it. Let me go ahead and toss my email up there. And for anybody who's watching us live, if you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to ask. That's what we're here for. Lily was not able to join us today because Lily is off today and tomorrow, I think, Thursday and Friday. But that's okay. We got Bernie here. I was afraid that I was going to be tied up this morning also, but my tied up changed to this afternoon. So things worked out that we were able to be here with you live.
You know, for those people that aren't live, they can use your email and address and send you things at any time. They're just not going to get the immediate answer they would today. So,
Yes, you won't get a word of warning for anybody who emails me. That's great. I'll figure it out and I'll get back with you. Probably not immediately. Things kind of back up and get really busy sometimes. So, we get to your questions just as quickly as we can. We are putting together another way for us to collectively answer questions. So, hopefully, soon, if you email us, if you send us pictures, we're going to be able to put it into one email address, and several of us are going to be able to answer it. So, hopefully, we'll get quicker responses that way with any questions you might have. I see that we have at least a few people on here with us today. I'm always afraid of coming on here live, and up in the corner, I could see like a little eyeball and the number of people that are on here live. I'm almost always afraid of it being zero for like a long time. So,
actually, you have
Barney,
developed a pretty good following on this. I'm amazed at the number of people and the locations, and it really stretches us to be able to answer questions from out of the area, and it's actually enjoyable. It gives you an opportunity to think about things that we don't have to very often.
yeah, I've even gotten like coconut palm questions from South Florida, which I don't get a lot of practice with them because we can't grow them here in Hernando County. They're going to freeze dead very quickly and not do well. We're too far north. But yeah, I mean, if we don't know the answer, we know the answers to a lot of questions, but probably not all of them. But if we don't know it, we're going to look it up. So, Bernie, what is the best time to harvest your cassava yucca?
I don't have a clue. This I am not the vegetable man. I'm the citrus and the lawn specialist. So if we're talking flowers or we're talking vegetables, we're talking to the wrong person.
I guess that I'm the yucca expert for today. And even though I've never grown it, I need to grow it because I like yucca. You ever tried yucca or cassava before?
Yes.
I had it. It's really popular with Cuban cuisine, and I've had it before. I think it's great. I like it very much. I need to go to the store and buy some. Thanks for reminding me, Bassem. I need to get some yucca and enjoy it. But it grows as a root, and it's a tropical plant, so it's going to grow just fine here during the summer when it gets really hot and steamy, and your tomatoes and cucumbers and squash are all dead. Your yucca is doing just great, just loving the rain and the heat. I think most people dig their yucca up and harvest it in the fall. So you want to plant it in the spring, give it a nice long, hot, steamy summer to grow, and then dig it up and harvest it in the fall. Because it's like any root crop, garlic or anything else that you start from a small root. over time, it's going to grow to be much bigger roots. And cassava will give you big roots. If you ever look at the grocery store, next time you're there, look in the produce department, they probably have it. Some of them are really big roots. So yeah, I need to try growing that. I've never grown it before, but I know that it does well here during the heat of summer. So Maggie Chili Beanie says, I'm renovating our Gainesville garden and house. The smartest people are those who know what they don't know. You folks are doing a great job. We'll take that as a compliment because that's probably how it was intended.
You know, the interesting thing is, the more you know what you don't know. And I was thinking about that driving in this morning, that I know so much less now than I did when I started this, and it bothers me because there are so many avenues to explore, and not enough time. The life just isn't long enough to learn everything about everything. So, you know, you have to pick something and work at it. And I really enjoy the people that are very knowledgeable on and very talented at one thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's a great way to live your life. Be good at what you do, and know what you know. And as long as you don't get involved in all these other things, if you're smart enough to realize I shouldn't be involved in those, uh, what more is there that's important? Politicians could sure stand to learn that.
And those are all the people with the university that I try to get on to help teach classes. We've done in the past strawberries with Dr. Whitaker, who's the University of Florida plant breeder that works with strawberries. So chances are, I can almost guarantee the strawberries that you bought this past winter that were grown in Florida, he helped to develop the varieties because they're always coming out with new, better, tastier, more productive varieties. Had experts on growing sweet potatoes, growing citrus, growing calabaza. University of Florida plant breeder for calabaza. Who's going to know more about growing calabaza than somebody who does it for a living, having to deal with the potential insects, diseases, fertilizer issues, everything else. So if you're curious about, well, gee, what kind of classes do you have coming up? If you just go to this website scrolling down below, Hernando Extension, all one word.com, that has a whole listing of all of our upcoming classes. And we have one coming up on citrus that I need to put up. And I'm not sure what else we have coming. Oh, I have a class on Friday about growing vegetables that grow well during the heat of summer. Because, you know, today is June 1st. June 1st isn't specifically a holiday or anything. It's just June 1st. It's right after Memorial Day. But somewhere between June 1st and June 15th, all depending on where you live at, your tomatoes and peppers and definitely cucumbers and summer squash are all going to crash and burn. Because wherever you live in Florida, it's going to start raining. It's going to get hotter, going to get more humid, more diseases, more insect pests. And those crops just do not do well here during the heat of summer. Maybe up north you grew them, and June, July, and August is when you get your tomato harvest, and tomatoes are growing, they're flowering. Eventually you pick the tomatoes. I know in Maryland it's August, July and August, I guess, when you get the big harvest. Here, the season for most of those vegetables is just about done. So we're about to go into things that you have to grow during the summer heat. And on Friday, we have a class of Lunch and Learn. So I'll be doing that at noon tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday, isn't it?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay, I'm all thrown off because of the holiday. So yeah, tomorrow we have a class at noon on growing different vegetables during the heat of summer.
I can remember in the fall, the big trucks of tomatoes would roll in to the ketchup factory, and the factory would just turn out canned tomatoes and ketchup for about a month, and then it was over. And they would
Yep.
put 40 different labels on everything, and uh, there was Heinz ketchup, and there was somebody else's ketchup, and uh, Stokely, Van Camp, and all those, and it just depended on how many orders they had, and it was such a short season that little factory opened up, ran like crazy, 24 hours a day, and 30 days later they were done. So, and that was, gosh, that must have been in September up north.
Yeah, yeah, that's when they're getting the biggest part of the harvest close to the end. So Bernie, you haven't written a book yet, have you? You need to
Well,
write
no, that thought never occurred to me, but would she buy it?
I guarantee you we can plug it on here and you're going to sell at least a couple copies.
The mangroves do grow well in the heat. Uh,
Yeah,
they don't
all
like
those
the
tropical
cold.
fruits, they love it when it gets hot and steamy. They don't like it when it gets really cold during the winter.
If you're someplace where it doesn't freeze, mangoes are a good thing to raise. And there's some varieties that are just tremendous nowadays.
You know, I'm amazed at you do not have to go very far south than where we are right now to grow mangoes successfully. We were down in northern edge of Tampa Bay, so it was Hillsborough County. We went over to, is it Dunedin or Dunellen down there? Dunedin.
Dunedin.
Yeah, we went over to Dunedin and Oldsmar, and we're walking around a little park, and I look over in somebody's yard, huge mango tree, like as tall as the house, covered with mangoes. And they're, how many miles south of us is that? That's not that far.
Yeah, but that's a unique environment, that area.
He was right on the water, but I know that people grow a lot of mangoes in Tarpon Springs.
That peninsula, though, that little area uh, following Highway 19 down to the end of Pinellas is a good 10 degrees warmer than we are.
Yeah.
Basically, from from Sarasota south uh, is the end of the frost, end of the freeze, and you know I've got some friends that took their swimming pool and filled it with dirt and planted papayas and mangoes in it, and because it's up next to the house and very well protected, they do well. I'm amazed. They get a crop pretty much every year. They did not lose the plants this last freeze, so
That's great.
that does work. So I guess filling in your swimming pool, if it's close enough to the house, will suffice to keep you from having to move to Sarasota.
Yeah, protected areas, areas right on the water, areas just a little bit south of here in Hernando County. You can grow a lot of those different tropical things. And like I said, Bernie, if you want to write a book, we got a commitment for one sale here. So that's a start.
That's very good. I have to make the dedication to Chili Beanie Maggie now.
And we have a question here from Bassem about what is the best method to compost horse manure?
I would say time with horse manure.
Mm-hmm.
6 months to 9 months in a pile is especially in the summer. Uh, Maybe a little longer in the winter, but in the summer, one summer of sitting out in the heat in a nice pile, it should no longer be damaging to your plants at all.
Yeah, and horse manure normally comes along with a lot of bedding, which helps because then it has a mixture of high nitrogen and high carbon materials. so it's going to compost well. So University of Florida has a ton of information on that. I'm sure Teresa can look up about how to safely compost horse manure, because if you're using it in your edible vegetable garden, you're going to eat stuff that comes out of that garden. If you're just using it to spread around your flowers, your hibiscus, your roses, things like that, you're not eating them. So wash your hands really well after you handle the manure, whether it's fresh or composted. But if you're using it around ornamentals, you're pretty safe because you're not eating the ornamentals. Edibles, you need to be a little bit more careful with. And today, June 1st, is the first day of hurricane season. Yay!
Yeah.
Can't get away from that. And University of Florida has tons of information on hurricane season, how to properly prepare. And there's a lot of little things like proper temperatures to store your food at. Should you use electricity? Now you're wondering, is this food in my refrigerator that got a little bit warm? Is it safe to eat? Is it not safe to eat? Lots and lots and lots of information out there. It's all freely available. It's just a little difficult to kind of go over it again year after year after year. Best we could do is keep our fingers crossed, be prepared, make sure you have a generator, fuel for it, plenty of food, things like that, plenty of things for the pets, whether it's extra pet food, medication, whatever it might be. Try to be prepared, hope for the best. If you live right on the beach, one day something is going to come across either the Atlantic Ocean or the Gulf of Mexico and hit you first before other people who live further inland. So be aware. But yeah, it is hurricane season once again.
The things to think about on the hurricane preparedness are, if you have no electricity, you're not going to be able to maintain your food. So you need a lot of food that requires no refrigeration or no heating to be edible. And so fruit salads, those kind of things really work well. But so many people I know don't have a functional mechanical can opener. So, if you don't have any power, you can't use your electric can opener. There's nothing worse than trying to open a steel top can with a darn knife. You end up cutting yourself, or you destroy the can. Everything's a mess. So, my recommendation is get a really nice can opener and hang it around your neck during hurricane season.
Good old-fashioned hand cranked ones. Hey, they work. And I remember seeing years ago, they did a study on when a hurricane's coming, what are the most popular food and beverage items that people run out to the store and get at the last minute. Do you know what they are?
Water's probably the most common thing.
Beer and Pop-Tarts.
Well, Pop-Tarts are pretty good. Warm beer is just too British for me.
So don't be caught short and be at the grocery store after almost everything is gone, and now you're having to buy little potted meat food and Vienna sausages, even though you hate Vienna sausages. Go and buy that kind of stuff early so that you can get exactly what you want. That way you get the exact flavor of Pop-Tarts that you want also. Let's say you like blueberry frosted. You want to be able to get them and not just whatever's left. And plenty of drinking water and any other kind of beverages that you feel you're going to need to survive the storm. And that way you're prepared. You don't want to be at the store with the storm hitting like the next day or something, because
no, there's nothing left at the store when the storm's next day. It's bare.
Yeah, probably the last thing to go is either Vienna sausage or potted meat food. I'm not even really sure what that is.
And asparagus spears. There seems to be plenty of asparagus spears to go with your deviled ham.
Funny thing is, I love asparagus, so that wouldn't be a big problem for me.
It's hard to cook it if you don't have power.
Gas grill. and we have extra propane. And I mean, we're really well set. So I find it a little hard to relate to people who have like nothing prepared. So just get prepared, get ready for hurricane season. So if anybody has any other questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. Questions, comments. We're not taking book orders today. Maybe in the future. So Bernie, you said that you already spoke with a lady today who came in with a turf grass lawn question.
Poor woman, I really kind of felt sorry for her. She had mowed the grass at an inch and a half high for the year that it lived, and it all died. And she had one of these professional people that came out and sprayed it faithfully every month to hasten its demise. So there again, the old adage of don't put anything down if you don't know why really applies. These people that send a minimum wage guy out knows absolutely nothing about lawns. He puts down what somebody in an office that pretty much knows absolutely nothing about lawns recommended. And the owners don't spend the time that it takes to find out what they should be putting down. And, you know, if you have a problem with take-all root rot, and at some time during the year, just about everybody with St. Augustine lawn does, spraying it with fertilizer at that point may not be the right thing to do. It could be putting gasoline on a fire. So somebody needs to be able to make the determination, should we do this or not? And apparently nobody ever bothers. You know, grass is something shouldn't even be growing in Florida. If it hadn't been for the people getting off the train and seeing the pigs and chickens in everybody's front yard and wanting it to look like New England, we wouldn't have this problem. So, you know, if you really want a nice lawn, spend a little time. There's some really good university publications on each type of lawn that we have in Florida. Read it and at least know the basics. Know what the diseases are, know what the insects are, know what the mow height is, what the fertilizer requirements are. And then if some guy's coming around and wants to put fertilizer on every month, that's wrong. No matter what kind of lawn you have, fertilizer every month is wrong. So don't pay him. And if the guy doesn't want to mow your yard at 4 inches high, you know, you're paying the guy to do the mowing. And in our county, every unemployed person with a pickup truck gets a mower and goes into the lawn care business, the lawn mowing business. So there's somebody that'll do what you want. You just have to know what you want and be determined enough to get what you're paying for. So just good advice. You know, you learn about your body because you don't want to die. Learn about your lawn because you don't want it to die.
Yeah, because when it dies, and if you're in a position where you have to replace it because you live in a subdivision with an HOA, it's expensive. It's not cheap. I spoke with somebody just the other day, and I had no idea what it cost for a pallet of sod or labor to throw it down. I mean, the last time I had to buy a pallet of sod was 15 years ago. I guarantee you the price has gone up a lot since then. And I think this is for Bahia, but a pallet of sod's like $130, and labor for throwing it down is like $85 a pallet. And potentially, you know, a yard can require 10 pallets of sod. So it's not cheap, you know, pretty expensive proposition. And anymore, when people come in, if I see that they've been cutting their grass, especially St. Augustine, way too short, there's no point me giving watering recommendations, fertilizer, pest control, nothing. None of that's going to have any effect. You cut it too short, it's going to die either soon or a little bit later. There's no point going anywhere beyond that cutting height if you're cutting it too short.
Well, hopefully that's one of those things that eventually I think that the counties are going to do more and more enforcement, strictly because water is going to be a problem, and water management of lawns is a key part of all the rest of the things. It's interesting in that a lawn that's 4 inches tall on St. Augustine Floratam lawn only needs about half as much water as a lawn that's 2 inches tall. So, mowing it too short increases the water demands dramatically. And it also decreases the time between the watering. So if you mow it short, the roots are short, it dries out quicker in the top part of the soil. You have to water more often. So it will eventually get to the point where we'll either have rules against grass, or they're going to have mow heights requirements, and people will understand that mow height's important. Until
Yeah.
then, it's a good thing we're here and can tell the people that lawn is dead, because they don't seem to be able to figure that out.
Yeah, sometimes it's pretty obvious. And watering restrictions are only going to get tougher. They're not going to get easier. They're not going to come out 6 months from now and tell you can water your lawn every day. Because I talk with people, I speak with people during the summer and in HOAs, and they're like, our lawns look terrible. We need to be allowed to water more. And I tell them, do you know how much it's been raining recently? And then you want to water more than once a week on top of that? You're growing St. Augustine grass. We're not growing rice. You don't need 10 inches of water a week to grow it. During the growing season, St. Augustine needs approximately 1 inch of water per week during the growing season. So between rainfall and irrigation, if you hit 1 inch or close to it, you're perfect. So, and we're allowed here in Hernando County to water once a week. So if you come close to 1 inch and it doesn't rain, you're still okay. If you're cutting that grass nice and tall at 4 inches, you have a healthy lawn, it'll survive a dry week or two. But if you're shaving it down real short, when things get dry, it's going to roll over and die really, really quick. And now you're getting letters telling you have to start getting quotes on getting it replaced. And that's expensive.
It's amazing the difference. If you mow it 2 inches, the root structure is only 2 inches. If you mow it 4 inches, the roots can go well past a foot. So
yeah. So Sharon in Brookridge asked, is anyone growing artichokes in Central Florida? And I know the answer to that. Researchers over on the east coast of Florida, around Hastings, St. Johns County, St. Augustine area, have been looking at growing artichokes. Somebody I work with, Prissy, was involved with that, with commercial growers, seeing if there are varieties of artichokes that would grow and produce artichokes here in Florida. And I think that they've had pretty good success with that. Teresa, if you're still on here, if you could try looking up UF publication on growing artichokes, that would be great. So believe it or not, you can. You have to have the right varieties. Not every, because the artichokes that you buy at the grocery store almost always come from California. And that's totally different environment than here, totally different weather. So the varieties that grow in California probably aren't going to do well here, but definitely worth a try. And Bernie, Sharon said that if her HOA would let her, she would fill her yard with wildflowers.
that makes good sense. I'm doing that at home. I planted a couple of plants of Mimosa strigosa, the beautiful little puffs, and I just put them up next to my wife's little office shed, and they just started growing and growing and growing, and now uh, they're really filling in. And it looks good in the winter. It's kind of a yellowish green, and then in the summer, the bahia comes up, looks nice, mixed in with the mimosa, and the little flowering purple things, little puff balls all over the yard. I like the look, so I agree with her. A flowered yard makes a lot more sense than a grass yard. Grass is not something that should even be grown in Florida. If you a quick story, if you take a map, we're at 28 degrees north latitude here, and you go around the globe at 28 degrees. When you go west, you go through the desert southwest. They have no grass. When you go east, you go through the Sahara, you go through the Arabian Peninsula, you go through India, you go through China, and you're back into the desert southwest of America. At no place on Earth at 28 degrees is there a grass growing that produces a lawn. So, we would be a desert if we weren't just this little sliver peninsula with weather coming at us from both sides, so that the west coast gets water from the Atlantic and the east coast gets water from the Gulf, and we don't actually have the desert that we're at that latitude. So all this grass is something that has been only being grown in Florida for about 150 years, as opposed to the grass up north. The northern grasses are almost all European grasses, and are 3,000 or more years of development. So when you talk about Kentucky blue and the fescues and all those things, those are all European grasses. There's basically no lawn grass anywhere in America that is native to North America. So with that said, why do we have grass at all? Whatever happened to having chickens in your front yard?
Yeah.
The HOA would really like that, wouldn't they?
Yeah, no, that would be an issue. Although, I mean, the rules are changing. More and more towns and counties are allowing chickens within reason. You can't have 20 roosters or anything like that. There are restrictions on it, but they are kind of opening up a little bit. I know that I don't live in an HOA, and I do very, very little to my lawn. I cut it, I bag the clippings, I compost them. That goes into my vegetable garden. So I'm not going to waste that resource. But other than that, I'm not going to spend a lot of money in water and chemicals and seeds and everything else getting a perfect lawn. Just not that big of a priority for me. So we have a question here from Jeremy. Is there a natural way to clear a field of weeds without using chemicals to set up for planting hay? Let me share phone number for our multi-county agent, Laura Bennett, and there is her phone number. So if you have any pasture or livestock questions, that is what she does. Her office is technically at the Pasco County Extension office. Well, she's here on a regular basis in Hernando County. She covers Hernando also. So, Jeremy, as long as you live somewhere close by here, Hernando, Pasco, Sumter, she can answer your questions, because when people have questions about Bahia grass in their lawn, I answer them. Bernie answers them. But if somebody says, I have a pasture and I have animals and I'm trying to grow Bahia, I don't answer them. I send them to Laura, because you can use certain chemicals on your home Bahia because you're not eating the grass. Hopefully nobody else is. Hopefully your kids and pets aren't. But if you have a pasture and you're raising animals or livestock, you're going to be using different chemicals. There are things that you can do and do safely, but it's just a totally different situation. So Bahia lawn is different from Bahia pasture, even though they're both Bahia.
Yeah, and there are a lot of weeds that if you till it, which is one of the easiest starts, sometimes that makes the weeds worse. Sometimes that solves the weed problem. So it depends on a lot of things as to what the procedure is. Uh, I come from a farm community in Indiana, and every one of those pastures or every one of those fields was treated different because it depended on what was there as to what the most appropriate thing was. And it was very seldom that it was the same thing for every field.
Yeah. Okay, we have a couple more questions here. Somebody says it was reported that there was a case of malaria near Sarasota from a mosquito bite. I heard that also. They said it's rare, but what are the chances of that spreading? It could. In theory, it could. You know, not that many years ago, malaria, yellow fever, a lot of other mosquito-borne diseases were endemic in Florida. Malaria was all over Europe, all the way up into northern Europe, because we've been, even through the short period of time where we have historical records, through warmer and cooler periods. So when it gets a little bit warmer, the mosquitoes spread further north up into Scandinavia. Malaria is a huge problem over there. We got rid of malaria here in Florida, but you always have to be on the lookout, and you always have to be safe. You always want to use that mosquito repellent, you know, whenever you're outside working, and dump containers, dump that standing water.
The malaria is the mosquitoes contract it from somebody that's infected and then pass it on. Is that not correct?
Yes, that is correct. They move it from person to person, and it's a single cell microorganism.
So as long as we don't allow the people that do get infected to get bit anymore, we should be able to control it fairly quick. But if you allowed it to uh, get a foothold and start moving through a population, it could easily get out of hand.
Yeah, it could. But mosquito control is always working on that. I need to have our mosquito control person on here. She hasn't been on yet. Yeah, I need to invite her on to talk about mosquitoes here in Hernando County. We have a question about from Bassem. What is the best time of year to propagate by stem cutting the roses? Should be able to do it now. Cuttings generally work from spring through fall, not on brand new growth, but on fairly new growth. So trying to take cuttings in the dead of winter can be difficult for a lot of plants because the growth is very old at that point. And early spring, right when the branches all flush out and they're still really tender and they bend, that's not necessarily the best time because the stems aren't old enough, but you should be able to try propagating it now. Roses can be tough to grow here in Central Florida. It's not like up north.
They only have a couple hundred diseases. It's just, every insect seems to go for roses. Every one of the funguses seems to use roses as a host plant. So
it's like a little fungus magnet. And Tracy asks, going back to chickens, do you think it will soon be possible for an exemption that allows people who can't afford to install a fence to obtain a permit for chickens? That is all going to depend on exactly where you live, what county you live in, whether you're zoned agricultural, whether you're in a suburban area. My guess is most HOA subdivisions are going to take a dim view on that for a while. I can just
Yeah.
see chickens wandering up and down the street in Wellington or Silverthorne or another neighborhood here in Hernando. Bernie, here's one for you. Somebody has lots of cuttings of plumeria. They're a few years old. They all get leaves, but not all will flower.
Well, the big thing is, are they potted? Plumeria is kind of a funny plant in that it doesn't mind being root bound. It does not want to be overwatered, and depending on the variety, uh, I had some that took more than 12 years before they started flowering, which really
Wow.
surprised me. But their juvenile stage uh, can be quite long depending on the variety. So uh, if they're planted outside in the ground, and you're someplace where it stays warm enough that they don't get killed, I would try fertilizing with a high phosphorus fertilizer. Um, uh, what they call bloom buster fertilizer.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if they're in pots, um, that probably would also work well, but generally, if they're in pots, overwatering keeps them from blooming. They need to be slightly on the dry side. So I would think it would be one, watering, and second, the age of the plants. They will eventually flower. That's the amazing thing. I went for so long, and I was so convinced that they weren't ever going to flower. I almost got rid of them. I made probably 10 cuttings off of one of the plants, and then I found out that the cuttings had about the same biological age then as the mother plant. And when they started blooming, they all started blooming within a year. So don't give up. Plumeria is just a fussy thing, and don't love it to death. They don't like that. They don't, you know, if you fertilize it once a year, that's wonderful, and do not overwater. It don't, as long as they aren't showing any distress, they are not a water problem.
And one word of advice with plumerias, little helpful hint for today. By late summer, they will get plumeria rust, which is like on the undersides of the leaves. It's kind of an orange powder, and you can rub your finger over it and wipe it off, but don't do that. You're just going to spread it that way. So plumerias almost always get plumeria rust, and they're probably going to need a fungicide at that point, or it's going to damage the leaves, and the leaves are going to fall off prematurely.
Daconel.
Daconil would work. Yeah, Daconil is very safe to use, especially with non-edibles. There's usually no huge issues with it. So it looks like we're kind of rounding the bend and coming up to the end of the hour here. If anybody has any other questions, let me go ahead and start showing our different things here. If you missed Lily and you have questions for her or really, really difficult, confusing horticultural questions, please feel free to send them to her. There is her email address. So go ahead and fill up her inbox. Make her regret taking a day off of work. And if you have any questions for me, there's my email. Feel free to go ahead and shoot me an email. Like I said, please be patient. I'll get back with you. I can't always get back as quickly as I like to. There's days where I'm out of town or just tied up with something for the whole morning or afternoon or the whole day. So it was a busy spring this year. But now that we're kind of easing into summer, my schedule looks a lot nicer. So hopefully I'll be able to answer those questions a little bit faster. If you'd like to contact our office, there's our phone number. If you call today, Teresa will answer. And if you have a question for Bernie later on today, she will patch you through to Bernie, and you can make his phone ring and talk directly with Bernie and ask him your question and he'll help you figure out a solution to it. Please be sure to follow us on Facebook. Many of you are watching us on Facebook, some of you on YouTube Live, some on, let's see, I think we have the most people on our Facebook page, a few people on our Facebook group, nobody on YouTube at the moment, but we're on all three. But follow us on Facebook. We try to post a lot of good, timely information on there. Every time we have a class or activity or something coming up, we post it on Facebook to help keep you up to date on what we're doing. Our Master Gardeners have a Master Gardener Nursery here in Hernando County in Brooksville. That's located right off of State Road 41, if you're familiar with where the Hernando County Fairgrounds are, right behind that. Our nursery is open on Wednesdays and Saturdays from 8:30 in the morning till 11 because it's summer now and it's hot, so they close at 11. During the winter, they're open till noon because it's not as hot. So we're into summer hours now, starting, I think, this coming Saturday. They'll be closing at 11 a.m. because it'll be really hot after that. So come out early Wednesday or Saturday morning, look over what kind of plants they have available for sale. They are all either Florida friendly or native or both. Florida native plants are all Florida friendly, but not all Florida friendly plants are native. I think that's correct.
Mm-hmm.
And if you missed one of our classes, don't worry about it. We record pretty much everything. And then we send it off to John, who works for Hernando County government, and he cleans out the videos. He puts in the intro, the outro, a little bit of music at the beginning, and puts it on Hernando County government's YouTube channel for you to watch whenever you'd like to. So go ahead and check that out. If you go to YouTube and look in the little search bar up at the very top, and put in Hernando County Government, you can find Hernando County Government's channel that way. Lily, in her playlist, has 110 recorded classes. A lot of them are an hour long. So that's a lot of recordings. So you could spend, how many days would that be, Bernie, if you just binge watched about 110 hours worth of?
About 4.5 days, 5 days.
Okay, so you can listen to Lily 4.5 to 5 days nonstop if you'd like to. We don't recommend that. Go ahead and watch and listen bit by bit by bit. But she covers a lot of different topics, and chances are, whatever you have questions about, she already has a recorded class on that topic.
You know, the Master Gardeners are pretty much the intro into the university system. If you have a question or a problem, you start with a Master Gardener, and if a Master Gardener can't answer it, you go on to somebody like Dr. Bill. And if Dr. Bill can't do it, we have the entire university behind us. So basically, Master Gardeners are helpers and educators. And if you like that, even if you're not in our area, the Master Gardener program exists in every state all over the country. So if you're watching us in, Tennessee or Southern Florida or whatever, and you'd really like to get involved and participate, you can get a hold of your local university, call your local extension office, find out when they have a program. You have to pay to go. They're giving you college level education. It's a very, very worthwhile program. Learn something and then pay it forward. And it really works well, and it really makes you feel good. I've done this for about 18 years now. Have enjoyed it for a long time. Have learned a lot. They keep us up to date. We get some of the finest technical training on all the current bad things that are going on and the current good things that are happening. So if you want to help your community and you want to learn something, get involved. Contact your local extension office and get started. And Bill does the classes here. We have a great program, and I've never regretted it. So that said, you're all welcome to try it.
And if you're here in Hernando County, I am the person that you would want to contact. We're always looking for people who are interested in becoming master gardeners. We try to make it as easy on you to join and get involved as we can. If you live in a different county, contact your county's extension office. Different counties put their classes and programs together differently at different times of the year. So go ahead and check with them. If you live in, let's say, Jacksonville, Tallahassee, Miami, really, really far away from Hernando County, I'm sorry you can't be a Hernando County Master Gardener, because that's just a really long drive to come from your house to our office. A little bit further than you're probably going to want to do. But if you're here in Hernando County or just barely over the county line right around us, shoot me an email. We'll send you some information so that you can think about becoming a Master Gardener. So if we have any other questions, comments, anything, go ahead and toss them in now. And we'll squeeze them in real quick today. Otherwise, next Thursday, I'll be here. Lily will be here. Bernie, you're going to be here?
I'm always here on Thursdays.
We'll all be here next Thursday. So we'll have the whole gang here. And I'll try to get a hold of Alyssa with mosquito control, because it is that time of year for good common sense mosquito tips. Seeing as how every summer, especially when we start getting the rains, you'll hear about a case of malaria or Zika or some other problems. They're always looking for encephalitis and other diseases that can be spread by mosquitoes. So Alyssa is the expert on that, and we're always more than happy to have her on here. So let me
Bill?
There we go. I made myself a note.
I have heard several people say that love bugs were a problem that were started by the University of Florida and that they were released by the university. And I'm sure that you know the truth on that. Is there any truth to the thing that love bugs were released by the university?
Nope, no truth to that whatsoever. Love bugs came here over time, all on their own. They're native to different parts of Mexico, and they traveled up through Texas, around the Gulf Coast, into Florida. When they first arrived, and Bernie, you might remember this, years ago, they used to be a lot worse. And during love bug season, people will get in accidents because you'd be out in the country, your windshield get covered with bugs. Worst thing you could do, first thing you learned living here, was you don't hit the windshield wiper, because that's like taking black paint and going across your windshield. You definitely can't see anything then. People will get in accidents and get hurt or die. But there's far fewer now because our native insects have found them and are keeping their population under control better. Love bugs are no big deal. If you get them on your car, wash them off. It's no big deal. There are much more important things in life to focus on than love bugs. So that's our thought for today.
While we're at it and talking about things like that, what about Kogan grass and kudzu? Were they university introduced?
I don't know if UF brought them here or USDA did. Kudzu was brought in for animal feed, and it went bad. Kogan grass was brought in possibly for animal feed because animals do feed on it, but just when it's really, really small and new and tender, and for stabilizing banks of rivers, creeks, pieces of land that are not flat, basically, because Kogan grass does produce a very deep, thick mat of roots. Many of those types of grasses are very good for that. Kogan grass is a very bad choice for that. We have better, Fakahatchee grass, muley grass, things like that are better choices if you need to stabilize a bank. But in the past, it used to be kind of wild, wild west. People would, if you were really rich, you could get on a steamship and you can go over to Asia and China and you find all these cool plants, this, that. Just grab a bunch, bring them back with you on the ship, get off at the port, go home, stick them in the ground. There are no laws, there are no controls. There was no USDA checkpoint at Miami International Airport. There wasn't even Miami International Airport. So you could bring back whatever the heck you wanted and raise it and let it loose and cause all kinds of problems. They really discourage that now. So the government does not bring that kind of stuff back lightly. They study it for a number of years before that it's okay for release. Still, human beings are the best at moving stuff around the world. We go overseas. People bring back, you'll see sometimes someone will get caught at Miami International Airport. In their suitcase, they got a whole bunch of fruit and food and this and that. And the inspectors open up, it's like, you can't bring that in here. They check it, they find fruit flies, they find invasive insects, all kinds of stuff. So go on vacation, enjoy those things in the country that you go to. Don't bring them home, though. And I mean, there are rules about bringing all those kind of things back. You're not supposed to do it, basically.
I can remember when I drove, if you went west, got to the California border, they checked for all those things in your car to make sure that you weren't carrying any insect in that was going to damage the California crop. So it has been a problem over the years, definitely.
There are a lot of restrictions on moving plant material from state to state. California is tough because they don't want things that aren't in California yet to end up there. And if you're going to send plants that are raised or grown out in Florida to other states, they have to go through nematode testing and certification. And a lot of times when they bring these plants in from Costa Rica, South and Central America, into the US, they have to take the plants, knock all the dirt off, wash the dirt off to make sure we're not bringing bad nematodes from those countries here to Florida. A lot of regulations, a lot of inspection. They don't inspect it all. They don't catch it all. New invasives end up here in the US on average 1 every week and a half. Something new pops up. So
well, when you look at all the wooden skids that things are shipped on, how many insects get trapped in those skids that you never are going to find just doing a cursory inspection? So I can see where there are a lot of things that could slip by and become some serious problems. We lost all of our red bay trees from that. That was one.
That was from an insect that came from China that did not damage those trees badly when they were alive over in China. But apparently you bring it to the US on a ship in the pallets, let it get loose, and it changes its feeding habits a little bit and kills all the red bays and starts feeding on avocados also, which apparently it's not really a big avocado pest in its native range over in China, yet it is here. So job security for us, sharing that information with the public. So on that note, it is 10:59. Boy, now this is showing good, proper time management, I think. Let's go ahead and wrap it up. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining us live. If you're watching this recorded, all the information applies to you also. Feel free to shoot us an email if you have a question, contact us, get a hold of us with pictures and a question. If you want us to feature it on next week's episode, next Thursday, and then you can watch it after the recording afterwards and get the answer to your question, feel free to do that. But otherwise, we're all going to see you here again next Thursday at 10 a.m. on Facebook, our Facebook group, and YouTube Live. So you know where to find us. You found us this time. You're going to find us again next week. But Bernie, thank you so much. I guess we'll see you again next week also.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.